So I want to truly understand the power of astrology and what you do specifically. And the reason why I wanted you to be here, because I do love your approach, and it's very unique because you truly bring astrology into the day-to-day. There's a big aspect of spirituality and healing. And I think, to me, I look at it as like, okay, this is a tool I would want in my toolbox.
Yes.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for being open to this. And thank you for seeing through a lot of the BS, because there is a lot of BS astrology. And I'm an astrologer that says that. I say I won't do basic bitch astrology. Like, that's what I call it.
Okay, no basic
bitch astrology here. Yes.
Okay, so take me through your journey first, because I haven't met so far someone that was just like woke up one day and said, okay, I'm going to be an astrologer.
Exactly. I joke about that all the time. I say when I was little, I'm like, I didn't say, oh, mom and dad, I want to be an astrologer when I grow up. So it didn't happen that way at all. My story is long, but I'm going to give you the very abbreviated version. It's a wild story. So if you're open to some wild stuff,
let's do it.
Okay. So basically my background is in interior design and architecture. I was doing that. I have my master's in interior architecture. And so I was working at one of the top architecture firms in Boston after grad school, and people would have like died to work at that firm, but I wasn't happy. And so I was around 29 at this time. I wasn't happy, and I kept saying, I want to help people, but I didn't know what that meant. So I'm like, well, maybe I want to go to school to be a psychologist, because like that was kind of the only thing that I thought of, right? When I said I want to help people, but I'm like, I don't want to go back to school. I just did 4.5 years of grad school, right? Long story short, I would leave the office. I would be crying. I just felt like I was dying inside. I was doing red lines. So I'm working on AutoCAD and working in hospitals, and I was zooming in and working on urinals and cutting them in half and putting the screws through and working with the HVAC team. And I'm like, oh, somebody needs to do this, but I don't think it's me. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just like, this wasn't bringing joy to my life. Fast forward a little bit, I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and we went to Paris for my 30th birthday. So I was so excited. We had 2 weeks off of work, and we get to Paris, and he dumps me in Paris on my birthday. Yes, I know.
That's insane.
It's insane. Yes. It's actually going in the beginning of my book. So thank you. It makes for great material. I know.
Wow.
Yeah. So he dumped me, and I mean, I was like, people are getting engaged around us, you know, and this was years ago. So right now, this was 16 years ago. So, you know, I didn't have money to fly back. I didn't have the confidence to be like, F you, you know, like now I would have been like, see ya, I'm going to go on a trip myself. But, you know, I was a different person then. So we come back to Boston, and I have to move out because I'm living in his place. And I get this hit that it's time to move back to California. That's where my parents lived at the time. So I come back to California, and this was in 2009. So this was when the economy tanked. There were no design jobs. Everyone was losing their job. So I'm now 30, crying at home, can't find a job, broke. You know, I'm like, this is not how I saw 30.
When you mentioned I got a hint to go back to California, what does that mean, a hint?
Okay, so now I know what it means. Right. You're asking the good questions. So you want to go into the stuff. So I love it. So I basically got a download from Spirit, because they were guiding me, and you'll see with my story, they were guiding my whole path. But at the time, I didn't know anything about spirituality. So it just felt like, you know, when we're walking and we get a hit to like, don't go right, or don't turn left, or like go to the store, or don't go there. Like we get a strong intuition. That's what it felt like. But now I know that a lot of times our higher self or our guides directing us, because it's they're helping us on our path, right? So it was so strong that it felt like me. So I listened to it, and I knew it was time to go back to California. So I went back, and again, crying. I mean, it's just a disaster. I don't even have a good relationship with my parents at the time. And I'm like, wow, winning. I'm winning at life here at 30, you know, like this is how it is. I have some friends getting married, and I'm like, I don't even have money. I have to ask my parents to borrow their car. I mean, it was really like, you know, humbling to say the least. However, now I know that I had to go back there, because what started happening, and this is where if people are new to the spiritual journey, I would just like to say, have an open mind, because everyone says, oh, this stuff is crazy until it happens to you.
Right.
And then you learn that there's so much more beyond this realm. So what happened is I started having dreams, and we all have dreams that like feel real and they tell us things sometimes, we get intuitions, but it was on another level. So I would wake up and I would be crying for like an hour because it was so deep and so profound. And I kind of felt like I was in another realm.
Mm-hmm.
So that kept happening. And then I had dreams that would tell me things and they would happen during the day. So now at this point, I'm like, this is the twilight zone because I have no other recollection. Like, I don't know, excuse my language, but I don't know shit about shit at this point. Like, I know
Right.
nothing. It's 2009. I don't know anything. I'm deep in the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, something is happening. I think that like I'm losing my mind. I'm kind of getting scared that like I need help. So then probably the next day or I don't know, a little after that, I wake up and in the middle of the night, I wake up and I see a spirit in front of me. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, no effing way that I'm looking at this right. Like I'm awake. Like I know I'm not dreaming. Like I'm fucking awake. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm looking at this right now. And then I got really scared after. It didn't do anything to me, but I got scared. And then I jumped up and it disappeared. At that point, I thought I was losing my mind. And I was about to tell my parents that like I need help, because I'm like,
spirits.
Yes, I'm literally like starting to hallucinate now. However, this is what changed everything. And then this just took me down a path. I realized, okay, and I hate to use the word crazy, so I'm not insulting anyone, but I felt crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, if I was actually going crazy, I wouldn't have the awareness that I look like I'm going crazy. Because I'm like, I know what this looks like to tell my parents that I'm seeing things. So I have an awareness that I look crazy. But if you're actually going crazy, you wouldn't have the awareness. So I'm like, wait a minute, something is happening. So that's what took me. And so something is happening. And then what happened is spirit started guiding me. And so what it felt like is them impressing things into my mind, into my body, and guiding me. And they told me to meditate. And I'm like, I don't even know what meditation is at all. Like, do I sit there and I hum? I mean, I really have no idea. And so I sat down, I just closed my eyes, and I got so deep in it, I would have to close my eyes, or I'd have to set my alarm, for an hour because I would be in it still.
Wow.
And through this process, I started realizing that there's realms beyond this physical realm. And I started realizing something is happening. And here's what I want people to know. I had no idea really what was happening, but for the first time in my life, and first time in 30 years, I felt a connection in my heart that I've never felt. Because my entire life, I'm sure people can relate, I felt very lonely my entire life. I felt very different. I didn't have a good relationship with my family at the time, and I just didn't know what it was. I quit every job I've ever had. So I thought there was something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
But for the first time, I felt my heart open and expand. And so that's what kept me on this path. And I'm telling you, I didn't know for a long time what was going on. And I had to learn, which I'll share. But my heart knew the way. My heart felt like something. I felt a connection to, well, now I know it was connection to my soul that was kind of missing my whole life. And so what happened is I then found astrology through working at this horrible temp job where they would just come in and yell at you as a property management job. And I'm like, I just needed money. And so it was horrible. But anyways, I met a guy that worked there and we went out to dinner and he said to me, why don't I read your birth chart? And I'm like, oh, I'm a Taurus,
Right.
So I'm like, a horoscope? He's like, no, not like that. I'm like, okay. Like I thought it was BS, to be honest. And he read my chart and I'm like, how do you know so much about me without knowing me? And so I went home that night, literally started Googling about astrology till the sun came up and I didn't stop. And at that moment, something happened and something activated. And I realized this is an amazing tool so that I could understand myself because I didn't know who I was at all anymore. So I started looking at my gifts. I started looking at my purpose, my direction. And I realized I have to do this for people. And so that started a long journey of now 16 years of moving into consciousness and energy and healing and astrology and all these crazy things. But I love to bring it back down to practical because we're here.
Yeah.
If you can't make it practical, like it doesn't matter if you're channeling the Pleiades, like, but I got to pay my bills and do the laundry. Do you know what I'm saying? So I make it very real.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about it. And I truly want to understand how we can use our charts as a guide, because another thing that I find that is happening in today's time and age is that we seek out a lot of external support and direction, and I am starting to resent it. It started in a very, after COVID, during COVID, we all went into this healing moment, and that's wonderful. But now what I see is like, oh, my friends are doing ayahuasca or doing this or doing that. And there's nothing wrong with it. But it's, again, looks like another chase. It concealed as, obviously a search for meaning.
Yes.
But you're still searching outside of yourself constantly. So
that's key, what you said.
Right. So to me, this is where my relationship recently with astrology started like, can this be the thing that bring it back to ourselves? Like for us understanding where we at in relation to the universe and the world and all the things, and then operating from kind of within rather than from the outside inside.
I love that you said that. And I feel like people can spend 10 years on their journey and not even get what you got. So what you said is really incredibly profound that you picked up on that and you see that. Because that's the thing. It's not about chasing something outside of you. And I think people do that. There's a lot of people in the New Age world. And by the way, astrology is not New Age. It's been around since the beginning of time. So it's funny when people call it New Age because it's literally not. But in the New Age world, which is fine if people want to do that, I think people get resentful afterwards because what they realize is they were chasing something outside of them, not connecting to their soul. So the way I teach this is just a map of your soul, but it's all about you inside. So this is not going to save you. I even say on the first day of my astrology mystery school, I'm like, this is a tool. This is not your only thing. I'm not your only teacher. You're going to have many teachers. You're going to have many modalities. But ultimately, I'm helping bring you back to yourself because I want you to love yourself in a way that you've never, so that you could understand yourself. And that's what I feel like the chart does, is it helps you understand who you are and how you're wired so that you can stop the judgment on self and you can have compassion for yourself. And when you do that, you move through life differently. And so it's a fine line, but you have to be evolved enough to understand that nothing is going to save you on the outside. They're just tools,
Yeah. Let's pause and chat real quick about today's sponsor, Lumi. Okay, hard truth. We don't just get sticky and sweaty in the summer. The winter and fall brings its own magic with the layering and the sweaters and whatever's going on underneath it, okay? So that's why I'm so excited to tell you about Lumi whole body deodorant for pits, privates, and beyond. This deodorant was created by an OBGYN who discovered that odor isn't just an underarm thing, it's an all-over thing. So she developed Lumi, which is a PhD optimized deodorant that's clinically proven to control odor everywhere for up to 72 hours. So pH balance means that it is safe to use below the belt. So if you have any other areas that are a concern to you, this one is good to go. It is also baking soda free and paraben free. We keep this in, we have like a little photo shoot toolbox where we take with us for shoots, and we have a Lumi inside a few of them. So very important. Also loving the scents. So they have toasted coconut, lavender sage, and clean tangerine, smelling fresh. The starter pack comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code Valeria. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals for over 40% off their starter pack. Use code Valeria for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's code Valeria at LUMEDEODORANT.com. I mean, it's a bigger conversation of us as a society to bring back that kind of inner trust, because we don't trust ourselves.
Yep.
And it's not only our fault, but it's also, we constantly get messages of like, don't trust yourself. Someone else knows better than you. There's all these experts that tell you what to do. I had this whole rant the other week where I posted how I unfollowed so many parenting accounts.
I saw that,
because I'm like, this is exactly what it is. I'm sick and tired of seeing all these so-called experts that I'm sure have great intentions, continuing to remind me that they know better than I know. You know what I mean? So it's this like return to self that I'm very keen on these days. And I want to actually ask you, you mentioned astrology is not a new age thing. So give me a little bit of background, like where did it started? Where did it come from?
Astrology has been around since the beginning of times. In fact, I'm going back to Egypt in February, and I went to Egypt, and it's on the ceiling of the Dendera temple. And so if that says anything, and I don't know that when it was built, something BC,
Yeah.
I don't know the exact, but
Something BC is close
something
enough.
BC, that's my quote, you know? I don't know exactly when, but if that tells you anything, the fact that we've been using this since the beginning of time, because you know, astrology can become basic bitch astrology, horoscopes. It's turned into that, my mainstream, but it's not. It's actually something so much more beautiful and so much more powerful that has been guiding us all along. And there's a reason why I go back to that. And, you know, I tell people, I don't need to do this. Like, I have my master's in interior architecture. Like, if this was bullshit, what, you think I would put my reputation on the line? But it's been around forever. And I just keep seeing it. And after 16 years, you see things. And I've watched people, I've mentioned things. This is probably, you know, gonna happen-ish, but there's always free will, or you see like you might be feeling this and this happens, and you see cycles and you can't deny it. I mean, in 2019, I told people that 2020 is gonna be a shit show. You know, I looked at the astrology. How would I know? You know, did I know exactly what was gonna happen? No, I didn't. You know, maybe if I dove in more, I could have maybe figured out, but I wasn't even thinking about anything like that. But I knew that it was going to be bad because I saw the astrology for 2020 was similar to World War I, World War II, 9/11, and the HIV/AIDS pandemic. So when you see the similarities, and that's what astrology is, it's really cycles of us, and we're cyclical beings, especially women with our, you know, cycles, our menstrual period, and it shows cycles that go on. And there's actually I don't specialize in this, but there's something called mundane astrology. And those astrologers are incredible because they track the cycles in history. So you could actually predict wars and stuff. And that's a whole other sect. I dabble, but it's definitely not my specialty. I'm more about bringing people back to their soul.
Wow.
Yeah.
So considering the conversation we're having about bringing people back to their own power, how does that look like for you when you work with people? Like, where do you even start for people to comprehend the kind of power they have?
Yeah, well, so it depends on what I'm teaching, and I'm always doing different courses and different stuff, but it's ultimately, you know, I think it starts in the messaging. I think, you know, we have a responsibility of what we say, and I'm constantly reminding people, one, it's not me. I'm not here to save you. Definitely. I'm busy enough. You know, I'm still a human and figuring out my own life. You know, I'm trying to find a man, anyone. You know, like
this is a good place.
Hey, no, he's trying to find me. Let's put it that way. And so I'm not here to save anyone. But what I am is I'm a guide, and I'm going to help remind you that we're all multidimensional beings. And I know that sounds maybe out there for people, but you know, we chose to incarnate. You chose to incarnate as you. I chose to incarnate as me, but our soul has wisdom beyond the years, and you are very wise beyond your years. I'm not just saying that you are. I mean, the things you're saying to me, a lot of people don't get, and you're already saying them. So, you know, we have lifetimes, parallel lives, past life, whatever it is, however it plays out, our soul has memory of this. So our soul has wisdom, and our soul is connected to higher consciousness. So I remind people that I know we feel stuck, and we might feel like, oh, I'm not good enough, and I'm not this. And it's very normal to have all this stuff, but that's not the truth of who we are. Right. So I constantly remind people that we are so much more than our logical mind, and we're so much more than our monkey mind that says all these things like, I'm not good enough for this job, for this person, for this, I don't look like this, or whatever it is. Right. We're so much more than that. So I'm constantly reminding people to come back to your heart, to come back to your soul. I use astrology as a tool. I talk about consciousness. I talk about the collective energy we're moving through. You know, I have a membership where I'm posting downloads every day in our app about what's going on and how to move through life with a higher awareness. I really think it's the awareness, that the understanding that we are not, like, I'm not just Danielle. Like, sometimes I joke, I'm like, that's cute that my name is Danielle. Like, it's not me. Like, I just chose this, and I'm in this costume, and I'm like, oh, I chose to be petite and 5'1" in this lifetime. But I'm like, next lifetime, I'll probably come back really super tall and like you maybe look like an alien or something, you know? So it's just, these are just costumes, you know, but our soul has wisdom beyond this. So it's important. You know, I still take care of my physical body. I went through a major health crisis with Lyme disease. So I had to learn, but it's not everything. So I think it's the awareness, to answer your question, that there is more, and that starts opening the doors of consciousness. And then when we open the doors of consciousness, we can see through, instead of seeing just through the peephole, we see through a bigger lens.
Do you feel like people these days are more open to these kind of concepts. I
Oh,
know
yeah.
that women are. And in
Yes.
general, I find that astrology, you mentioned, how it also works with our cycle, and we are deeply intuitive
Yeah.
beings.
Yes.
And I find that it's easier for us to have an open mind and connect to those places versus men.
Oh, yeah. I'm just going to call it like it is, because so I don't do that many one-to-one readings anymore. I do some for my membership group, but I've done thousands and thousands of readings. And when I get men, it's very rare that I have men take it seriously. It's almost like I got to the point where I didn't enjoy reading for men because they thought it was like funny. There was a lot of ego. I was talking to ego. I wasn't talking to the soul. And women want to learn, and women want to grow. And I've done a lot of celebrity readings being in LA, and honestly, those were not fun either. Like, I love Jane from Idaho that really just wants to find herself. Like, I love that. Do you know what I'm saying? Because there's like, we got to remove the ego and really just connect with the person.
I feel like I want you to sit down with Gary. I just really.
Oh, I have his chart here. He's very sensitive.
He's very sensitive.
He's very sensitive.
So guarded.
Yes.
So it's very interesting.
Sorry, Gary, but I'm gonna have to
I don't know if it's also an age thing where he's just
learned behaviors, of men. That's
closed
the thing.
off to new concepts and ideas. So that's very interesting. How.
I mean, I have an idea what it is, but I don't know if it's. I don't want to read him without him being here.
Yeah,
we could talk offline after.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You guys, fall is here. The weather is finally cooling down, and I'm so excited to talk about one of my fall obsessions, which is probably going to lead me into the rest of the year, but it is our sponsor, Cozy Earth. If you haven't tried their products yet, you are missing out. Their bedding, loungewear, pajamas, it's all so soft, so luxurious, and my favorite has to be their bamboo sheet set. It is not only super soft, but it's also breathable, which is a big deal, and keeps me at that perfect temperature all night that makes sure that I don't wake up in sweat. Not too hot, not too cold, just pure comfort. What's so special and what I personally love about Cozy Earth is the fact that they're all about sustainability and quality. They've been doing this over a decade and have thousands of 5-star reviews, so you can really trust the hype. Whether it's their sheets or their loungewear or their bath products, you're getting the best. So if you're ready to wrap yourself in luxury this fall, head to cozyearth.com/notalone and use the code Valeria for an exclusive discount of up to 40% off. And if you get a post-purchase survey, don't forget to mention that you heard it here on the podcast. You spoke about your journey to astrology and what kind of brought you to your practice. And I just want to give context. Like, you've been doing it for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
you mentioned you have a community.
Yeah.
You do a lot of public speaking on the topic. You also
writing a book right
You're
now.
writing a book. Yes, I remember. I saw that.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
So where do you see this evolving into? Is it becoming more mainstream?
Yeah. I do think it's becoming a lot more mainstream. I think about from 2009 to now, I mean, there was no Facebook groups. There was no, I don't even think Instagram, was that a thing in 2009? I don't even know.
I don't know either.
But it wasn't that big. And so there was nobody to talk to. So now it's like everyone's a coach and everyone. So I do think it's a lot more mainstream. I always say that I am an astrologer, but it's funny when someone refers to me just as astrologer, it's kind of like, I guess, we need labels, but I see myself as so much more. I see myself as a teacher, as a guide of where humanity is going. And astrology is a tool because I've done this many times before, but it's really about consciousness and the soul evolution and the soul journey while being human. So where do I see it going? There's going to be a lot of fun things. When my book comes out, let's see where that is. I see the book being a movie as well. The book is on love. From a higher perspective and soul contracts, and I'm weaving in astrology in that as well. So it's like a little bit of Sex in the City with my stories, because I've met some men all around the world with divine timing of soulmates, and then with a higher consciousness. So it's going to be really beautiful.
I'm so excited.
It's gonna be funny too.
There's a lot of misconception about astrology, and I wonder if, I'm sure your book and when it's going to become a movie, I'm sure it will help to kind of bring down certain misconceptions, because still to this day, people just don't really understand the difference. So let's go back again to the basics of like, what's the difference between horoscopes and that deeper astrological practice like natal charts?
Yeah. So I love what you said in the beginning about horoscopes, because, and I don't do horoscopes because you're right. That means every Virgo, we're all feeling this. And sure, there are themes, but it's so much more. So let me talk about what the natal chart is, because I think everyone kind of knows a horoscope. It's like every Virgo, you're going to do this. And then the Taurus, you're going to get a new job, right? It's so vague and so broad, and you have to make up a chart to do that, and I don't find it accurate. It's not real. So the natal chart, you need your actual birth time. So the birth time is so important, down to the minute. Like for you, because your moon is so close that if it's a different time, it could have been in one sign versus another. Okay, so you need your exact time, your date, your location, and then you put it into a program and it pulls up an entire chart. And from that, you can see how you're wired. You can see your purpose, your direction, and timing and cycles for your life as well. So the natal chart is truly the blueprint of your soul. It's your soul contract. And I was actually just teaching a course last night on this. In the middle of a hurricane, I'm teaching a webinar. I'm like,
I feel like it's the perfect time for that. Trust the greater purpose of all of this.
I'm like, let the winds come in and help us with the healing here. So, and I was just sharing, we're not stuck with our natal chart. Like we are who we are. Like you have certain color hair, and sure you can dye it, but you're born a certain way. I look a certain way. So there are certain behavioral patterns that we have, but within that there's a range of stuff. So what I like to do with the natal chart is teach people about it so they can learn, okay, am I playing out my shadow energy? Most likely, because we all are. Let's be realistic, until we're aware. And then we move into the higher octave. And so between those energies, I like to say there's 50,000 shades of gray. That's what I call it. And that's life. One day we're pissed off honking at the person, and the next day we're in yoga, like namaste. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's the reality. And like it's finding the balance, and maybe like the pissed off and the anger is less and less as we evolve, and we don't do that as much, right? So the natal chart really shows me so much about someone's soul, their behavioral patterns. I mean, honestly, it's better than therapy in many ways, because I can get to people's shit in like 10 minutes, and I can be like, oh, this is why you keep doing this. And when I saw things about my love life, like, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. I'm like, oh my God, I have literally one of the craziest things with like love. But now I know that about myself, right? So I know there's a tendency to do X, Y, and Z. And so I don't do that. And I use the higher octave, which is like divine channeling and divine love,
I'm wondering, because you mentioned it's like better than therapy, because I guess where I'm getting lost here is there's endless amount of modalities that are here to like unpack and heal and relearn and rebuild patterns, and it becomes overwhelming. I recently tried hypnotherapy, which I absolutely loved, and I tried regular therapy before, like cognitive therapy, and I didn't connect to it. So I also understand that it depends on like what the person is attracted to and what speaks to them most, but is there a difference between all these modalities? Like, let's say I'm going to therapy and I'm getting you sit with me and you explain to me my natal chart, okay? And I have this understanding of who I am to the core. Then is it something that complements the therapy, or is it something that kind of goes against?
No, I think it could absolutely complement the therapy. Now, don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that in Europe, there's a lot of therapists that study. And I believe way back when, we're talking olden times, you were a mathematician, you were a scientist, you were an astrologer. These were the top things because these were some of the most powerful tools. So it's actually a complement to therapy. Now, the reason why I said this is better than therapy is because, listen, it's great. Sometimes we just need to talk our problems out. So that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you need to go to therapy, by all means, right? But there comes a point when if you just keep talking about the problem forever and ever, we're not actually getting to the root of the problem, and we're not getting to it on a cellular level in your actual body where it's stored, and your body in your field, which stores the trauma. So now, I'm not saying that astrology can get to your field and your trauma, but what it can do is we can see this is your shit. This is what keeps getting you stuck. I've had people, when I read their chart, they're like, in 10 minutes, you got to what took me a year in therapy to get to. Right. Because I can see. So is it a compliment? Yes. Is it help you understand how you're wired so you have more compassion and love for yourself? Yes. And when you have more compassion and love for yourself, everything changes, right? And then you can move through a different lens. So again, is it everything? Absolutely not. I will never say just learn astrology and you don't need anything else in life. No, but there are many tools. And I believe that because our consciousness is expanding and where we're going in this world, we are getting access to so much more.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is going to be crazy, but soon, years down the line, it's going to be very normal to be like, oh, I'm just talking to aliens, this, or, my starseed family or whatever. It's very normal. It's going to be very normal because this is so limited, but our consciousness is expanding. So come back in 20 years and you'll be like, she said that.
If anything, I've learned the past few years is that I know nothing.
Yes, same. Same.
All options are open.
Yes.
I believe everything, unless it's proven wrong. Gary, this is funny because Gary and I were so different in that way, right?
Yeah.
I'm like so open, and I'm like maybe yes, maybe no, and he's like no. He's very like data, science, show me facts.
It's also like nurture and the environment, and men have to be a certain way, and maybe he needs an ayahuasca ceremony to blast him open.
You know what? I don't think so. I don't think he needs something else before ayahuasca. But you know what's interesting to me is that, sorry, I'm putting Gary on the line here because obviously this is my, I live with the man, and as much as I unpack my own stuff, I also have the privilege to unpack his.
Well, you're a Virgo, so you see everything, and you can see the details and the faults and everything. Yeah,
I see everything. Yes, exactly. And I do find it very reassuring that he moves in that way. Yes, sometimes I'm like, okay, I really want you to be more open-minded, but in a way, moving through the world, today's world, in a more pragmatic way, I feel like it gives a bit more clarity and order. Because something I do have to mention, when you are open to all the things, you really have to surrender to the constant chaos and instability, right?
But that's reality.
That is reality, but I don't know how many of us can accept it.
Right. That's the evolutionary journey, And so sometimes we have an illusion of control, and we do it to make ourselves feel better. And listen, I'm grounded and very open at the same time. And so there are things, I run a business too. So I could be a control freak. Let's just call it like it is. Type A personality, absolutely, as well as then getting the downloads and channeling. So
that's a great actual point. How do you balance the two?
It's very hard. Yeah. And I think what people don't realize is when I was building my business, it was never about making money and growing. It was I needed to grow my soul first. So I didn't actually make money and build my business for probably 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, before I wasn't really making any money because I was evolving my soul. I left out the whole part of, I was in an 8-9 year spiritual boot camp of being ripped open right and left. No plant. I've never done any plant medicine because I'm too sensitive. And so anyways, there's so much on that. But this illusion of control, it's not real. We can think we can control it. And sure, there's certain things we want to plan, but we almost didn't do this because of a hurricane, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many things that, it's a false sense of control. And the more we open to consciousness, the more we have to learn that we kind of just need to flow. Sure, I have goals and I have direction, but I also know that, if you would have asked me when I was 20 something, oh, are you going to be single at 46? Well, I would have told you no. Do you know?
Right.
But then I learned in my early 30s, Spirit told me that my contract was later in life. And I mean, talk about swallowing that pill when you're 30. I had temper tantrum after temper tantrum. I mean, it's horrible, right? But I've also learned it's beautiful and it's my path.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just, everyone has their own journey. So it's we can't fight things. We have to go with it. Right. And so it'll happen for me in the right time, because that's my soul journey. That's what my soul needed, right? Everyone's soul is so different. And then I try to share that with people as well, because it's reality. The matrix will tell me that there's something wrong with me, that I'm not married yet, or I didn't have a family yet as much as I want one. But I also understand my soul journey and what I've been through and what I've evolved. And so I trust that. And I know what's coming for me. So, I know that I'm here to set an example of people that you have to follow your path, not what society tells you to do.
Yeah. You're definitely showing how to break
Yeah.
the status quo.
Yeah.
When you say the matrix,
Yeah.
I just need like understanding, because again, I'm a newbie here.
Yeah.
So when you say the matrix, what is the matrix?
Well, in what terms? So we are all in the matrix. So let's just say like the whole like breaking out of the matrix, we're never actually going to break out fully because we're in the matrix. Like we're in a human body, we're in the matrix. But I think when I used it in the beginning of in the matrix, meaning I had no idea about anything beyond this realm.
Right.
I had no idea. I mean, I won't even get into it, but just like government stuff and like things going on. Like I had no idea about anything. And once you start seeing that we live in an inverted matrix, really. So whatever they tell you to do, you sometimes usually do the opposite and you thrive.
Right.
So you start learning that as you go on. And I had to learn that, unfortunately, I had to learn a lot about health when I went through Lyme disease. I was sick from 2017 to about 2021. I still every day take care of myself to the point where people would probably be shocked with all the stuff I do, but my body is so sensitive. So I'm not sick like I was, but I there's certain things that I have to do so I don't fall down that path again. But through that journey, I had to learn about the medical system, and I had to learn about body sovereignty. And I had to learn that, not everything that's right for everyone is going to work for you. And so you learn as you go, you know, to each their own. Everyone's on their own journey. I'm never going to tell anyone what to do, but you start learning that things might not be in your best interest. Like there's agendas behind things.
So where does your kind of background came into play? I know you were saying you were getting downloads from your tell me, give me all the words. I don't know the terms that you use.
From what though? What download?
Well, because you're saying like I had to learn that I can't trust this, and I had to learn all these things. Even your kind of awakening to your spirituality and this path that you took, it came from like a hint, or you were saying, you saw spirits, all these things. Like I want to try to bring that to the average, person, that when they hear this conversation, they're like, what in the actual is happening?
Okay, I love that. And first of all, I want to say every single person is psychic. Now, people don't like that word.
I believe that.
People don't like that word. It scares them. So let's say every single person is intuitive, because that feels like a safer word. But being psychic is the same thing as being intuitive, right? We're energy beings. We live in this world where they've convinced us that it's strange to have a premonition, that it's strange to be like, I knew something was going to happen to my child or my mother or whatever, right? They've conditioned us to step out of our power. It's actually not weird because we're energetic beings, first and foremost. What is actually strange, if you want to call it that, is that to not be tuned into your intuition at all, because we are not, like, I'm not this microphone. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, even the microphone has consciousness, but we're not beings with no soul, right? We have a consciousness. So it's actually reversed. Exactly what I was saying, an inverted world. We're living in an upside down, inverted matrix, that what is up is really down. And so every single person is intuitive. And the more we start accepting that, and the more we start realizing it's not weird, that it's actually just our innate gift of being on this human journey, that we're energetic beings, then it starts opening up even more.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I think we've all had times in our lives where we felt like we haven't been showing up fully as ourselves, like we were wearing a mask or something. And that could be happening in our career, in social settings, around family and friends, maybe even when you're just alone with yourself. Therapy can help us remove those masks and get to the root of why we even wear them in the first place. When we're talking about therapy, to me, I truly admire any medium that can bring us to a better understanding of ourselves. So peeling off the layers, understanding what emotions are triggering the way we show up, and exploring those emotions. I feel like understanding yourself is a lifetime journey, and therapy truly gives you a chance to understand what's going on the inside. It also helps communicate better, and that is such a key part of our relationship as a whole. So setting boundaries in our lives and finding ways to cope and heal. Because the most important relationship you'll ever have in your life is the relationship you have with yourself. So if you are considering therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suitable to your schedule. So all you need to do is just fill up a questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. And the great thing is that you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge, which is a huge benefit compared to the in-person sessions. Take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/notalone today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/notalone.
So before this, before my 30 and before I saw that spirit, I had like moments where I like felt things and saw things, but I would always just brush it off.
Yeah.
And I would never go deep into it because I didn't have the awareness. So what spirit has explained to me is they just kind of opened the floodgates when I saw the spirits, and then I saw a lot of more stuff after that, which I don't see now necessarily because I don't need to. It comes in a different way. But they did that so that I can get the clue that something was happening, right? So not everyone is just going to be like, everyone can see spirits, especially at night when we're in that space because we're out of our logical mind.
Yeah.
Right? But it's actually not abnormal. It's very normal. How do people talk to those that have crossed over? I've done that many times, and it's just energy because nothing actually dies. It just changes form, right? So they're all around us all the time. That might be a tough pill for some people to swallow, but as you learn more, everything is energy. That's it. And the story, like everything is energy, and it's just changing form.
It's mind-blowing. I mean, it's not the first time that I was introduced to this concept. One of my closest friends, Mary, shout out to Mary, she's extremely connected.
Oh, amazing.
Like scary connected.
I love it.
And growing up as a child, she saw, felt, heard, and could never understand where it's coming from. But, she early on figured out that she has those gifts. Yeah. And for a very long time, she was kind of shutting them off. And with the years, as she's getting older, she just goes back to that, extreme connection, and she's my go-to. Like Mary, who's someone speaking to me right now, can just let me know what's going on. So I've seen it in real life happening with her. So when you're telling me this, I mean, I 100% believe in it. I do feel that we are experiencing just a sliver of what is around us and who we are. So I totally get it. But I want to go back to astrology. I want to go back to the natal chart. I know that you read mine, and I kind of want to take that as to showcase the power and the kind of lessons that we can learn about ourselves. But before getting into that, can you explain to me the whole moon rising, what's the third one? Ascending?
Sun, moon, and rising. The big three, they call it.
The big three,
Sun, moon,
yes.
and rising.
Explain to me what those are.
I don't even know where the big three came from, but that's just that's a Instagram maybe thing, but everyone does it. So I'm grateful for that because then it brings more awareness to astrology. So, but when I learned, I mean, I don't know if I called it the big three, but I love everyone's like, I know my big three. I'm like, great.
Well, 10 years ago, it was like, what's your sign? And now it's like, what's your moon rising? And
which is amazing that people even know there's a rising sign. So I love it so much. So yes, the big three. So the sun in your chart is your life force. Depending on where it is in your birth chart, what house it's in. Basically, there are 12 houses in a chart, and each house relates to a different area of life. Okay, so we'll look at yours in a moment. Your sun in the house it's in is where you're going to shine your light, share your wisdom with the world, and really excel in that area. It's some of our ego, but not ego in a bad way. Ego as in because we're human and we're here. So we're going to shine our light to the world. Your rising sign, I like to say, is like the front door of a house because you might not know what's inside the house, but you can see the door, you can see how it's decorated. So the rising sign is what we show people when we first meet them. And it's also how we move through life. So a lot of people refer to it as the vehicle you drive of how you're getting through life, okay? Some people have their rising sign very different from their sun and moon. And it could almost be called, me and my friend, we called the great fake out. Like you meet someone at a party, you think they're great, and then it's like oh, you're really like quiet and shy, and right when you get to know them. So it's
Right.
like you're peeling back the layers. Okay. But it's not a fake part of you. It's just like, oh, I didn't see that you had those other parts of you. Okay. So it's like what people see when you meet someone for the first time. They see your rising sign. And then your moon sign is probably one of the most important in the chart, even more than the sun sign. And a lot of people don't know about the moon. The moon is your emotional nature, how you respond to things, what you need to feel safe. It's your physical body. It's also your emotional field. It's past life energy. It's so many layers. But if we just want to bring it down, it's your emotional needs and how you need to be fed, really. I always call it you feed your chart. If you're like feeling lost or feeling confused, like go back to feed your chart. Like what are you not doing in your chart, right? So your moon is really what you need to feel emotionally safe. And so a lot of people that we live with will see our moon sign, but people on the outside might not see our moon sign until we get really comfortable and intimate with them.
So just to summarize it, the sun is life's purpose. Would you say it's purpose?
Yeah, the whole chart is connected to purpose. It's really how you shine your light to the world and really where you excel in that area.
Okay. And then we have the rising, which is how people perceive you. Yeah. And then moon, which is how you move in the world. Your
inner world, emotions and your nature, and really like what you see. I always tell people if they're living together, you really need to know the other person's moon sign because that's what you're going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. That's their emotional realm. We see it behind closed doors. So yeah.
Okay. Let's dive into it.
Okay. So we're going to go with the time that you gave me.
Yeah. So just for a little bit of background, I call my mom probably every 3 months and ask her what time was I born. Yeah. And each time she gives me a different time.
See, this is the problem. Yeah, this is the problem.
So I really had to, do trial and error here. And 2 p.m. is the closest kind of time that I could get to. So we are.
Okay, so we're going off this, but it always helps. Sometimes people find on their birth certificate, right? Or they write in a baby book sometimes. So just to let people out there know. Okay, I mean, there's so many things that we can go to. Based on this, you have your sun, your Venus, and your Mercury in Virgo. So you're not just a Virgo sun. You have 3 planets in Virgo, and it's in the 10th house. The 10th house is about career. So based off this, assuming this is your time and what we know about you, you're someone that your career is important. You're going to be in the spotlight. So I might not even know you and someone could give me this. And let's say I didn't even know anything about you. I'd be like, oh, this person is going to be focused on their career in the spotlight. They're going to be talking. They're going to be sharing. They're not someone that's going to be hiding behind closed doors. Like they're going to be seen. Okay. Because we know that because the 10th house. So we know that's important to you. Now you're doing this through this Virgo lens. And, Virgo does get a bad rap. I mean, I'm sure
I know.
But it's also, I will say, sometimes it could be hard to be a Virgo because you guys are so detailed and you guys see everything that needs to be fixed or improved or edited. So I've talked to my Virgo friends and I've seen over the years, it could be hard sometimes because you just have to point things out, right? So, it's like, it's hard.
You oftentimes stand in your own way.
Yeah. And then Virgos sometimes struggle with analysis paralysis, where it's like they get so stuck with it wanting to be perfect that sometimes they don't move because they're just stuck in that. And it can kind of like take you in a loop. And they're often sometimes, they're critical of other people they could be, but they're also critical of themselves and they hold themselves to such high standards. So it's like they expect other people around them to come to higher standards. So, yeah. But you are here to edit and improve and you're here to fix. You need to be having conversations about this. And the fact that the podcast is called Not Alone, like I love that because you're bringing in conversation and you're pointing things out and you're open to other things, like even having me on talking about astrology, you're just open to other things. It's really important because Virgo is here to show people new ways to see things, new ways to try things. And you said something very true about there's so many modalities and it's very Virgo of you to be like, there's so many, what works? I mean, that's very critical thinking. And that's important because I think a lot of people don't think about that and they just try everything, which is great, but then you're sort of like losing yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So it's coming back to you. Okay. So that's just the basic right here. You have those planets. Your Venus is how you give love and receive love. And that is in Virgo. So it's very much about like wanting to take care and help people. There's actually a funny meme going around that for years, and I might butcher it, but someone with a Venus and Virgo is like, I liked him, but then they're like, but did you see how he burns his toast or something? Like the toast was like 2 burns or something. Like it's so like picking at like small things, you know?
Trust me, I often say how grateful I am that I got married so young, because I wasn't aware of that quality yet. I would have had a very hard time today.
Yes. So it's funny, but it's true, you know?
Yeah.
Like my friend has a Virgo, Venus and Virgo, and for her birthday, she just moved. I bought her a really nice looking trash can for her kitchen. And she's like, this is still my favorite gift of all time. Because I'm like, I know I had to get you the most practical gift when you moved, or you would have cut my head off, right? And she's like, I still think about it all the time. So it's like the practicality is so important. For Virgos. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So based on this, you have a moon in Libra. It's at 0 degrees. Okay. So Libra is about relationships and partnerships. So based on this, I'm not shocked that you got married young and you have a big family. Libras like people around them, right? It's you work well talking to other people in relationship and companionship, and that's really a part of you. And I think it's important for people to know, because before I got into astrology, I did judge people. I'll admit, I'd be like, people need to be single for, you know, they need to find themselves. And while that is important for a period of time, people with strong Libra, they do better in relationship. You just do. And you are wired to learn about yourself through the mirror of other. So it's important for you. So it's very important. What I do know for sure is that your North Node is in Aquarius. Okay. So your North Node in the chart's one of my favorite parts. I probably haven't heard of this. A lot of people have, or have you, or?
Explain.
Okay, because a lot of people don't know about their North Node. So there's something in the chart called the North Node and the South Node. The South Node shows me your deeply ingrained behavioral patterns. So you actually have a South Node in Leo. That means, yes, you have all this Virgo, but you have very strong Leo. Okay, so Leo is someone that is very creative. You never see a South Node in Leo. Like you're not really working for someone else. Like that's not going to happen for you. Like you are a leader and you're a boss, and it's very much about being a heart-centered leader to shine from that place. Okay. Now, where you're going in this lifetime, that's kind of the qualities that you'll always have. But the North Node shows you where you're going and where your soul said, this is one of the main lessons that I'm going to learn in this lifetime and I'm going to develop. Now, this doesn't happen overnight, and this is not like, oh, you turn 30 or turn 40 or 50 and you're just done. This is an evolutionary journey. Okay. So till the day we all die, right? We're stepping into our North Node. But I love this because this is really one of the main reasons why you're soul incarnated, to learn. Okay. So as for you, this is going to go bigger and bigger. Now you have a North Node in Aquarius. I call the North Node in Aquarius, it's very much like the Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa. So what they have in common is they were all joining for a cause greater than themselves. Okay, so where you're going in this lifetime, and it's amazing because you have a big platform, so I can see how that was set up to build for you so that you can launch into this, is that you're going to be doing things to help humanity and help unite people in really big ways. And, you know, I always say the chart doesn't lie. The chart is always there. It's just a matter of us moving into it. So it's not saying you're not doing big things, but this with Aquarius, it's like, how can I help humanity, right? How can I see the tie, the thread that weaves us all together? So it's going to be like some humanitarian work, or some, maybe you get involved and you're like, I'm figuring out the water crisis somewhere, and like you, because you already have a name, it ties you in, and then you're leading this, and then you get involved in this. So I can't wait to see how this is going to develop.
Same.
Yeah. But it's a big deal when you have your North Node in Aquarius, because you're starting to learn, your soul is that you use your creativity, you use your talents, and you use your gifts, but it's bigger than self. So it goes bigger, and it's about the world and how we're all connecting into that. So that's going to be exciting that you move into. And you're also learning awareness. You're learning about, which could be hard being a Virgo, is it's not like taking yourself out of things.
Yeah.
And seeing it. You could see it objectively sometimes being a Virgo, but really seeing things objectively and seeing how like the bigger thread of humanity weaves things together. Okay, so that's what's going to be moving into more and more.
So all of this sounds amazing. right?
Yeah. This is just basic. We haven't even
this
got,
is the
this is just basic.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm like, up
Yeah.
until now, I'm like,
Yeah.
amazing. I'm gonna do great things, and like, I just
Yeah.
can't imagine every person that comes
Oh
in.
no,
And,
this is
wanna
just
hear.
basic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just giving an overview.
Yeah. When I do a chart reading, I mean, it's an hour and a half of
Yeah.
like diving in.
But give me an example of like, okay, this is an overview.
Yeah.
At what point do we get to the chart that can guide you through a crisis or make you like understand
your cycles? Let's talk about that right now.
Okay.
You have Saturn. Let's see. Okay, so we have the birth chart, and then we have the transits. So the planets in the sky and where they're moving right now. When they hit planets in your birth chart, it signifies periods of growth for you. Okay, so right now you have transiting Saturn opposing your Venus. Okay, so Saturn is, whenever Saturn comes around, it is the disciplinary. It feels a little bit heavy, and it feels a little bit, I like to say Saturn is like an accountant or like the tax man. Like, unless you're an accountant, like you don't want to do taxes, but you have to because it's the law, it's the rule, okay? So when Saturn comes around, it forces us to look at things we didn't always want to look at, okay? But we do, we mature, we grow up, okay? So it kind of puts on the brakes and it says, you need to start looking at this. So this is opposing Venus in your chart. Let me just see what Venus is connected to, the 11th house and the 6th. Okay. So one, really be good to check your hormones right now. And see what's going on with that. That would be really important for you because it's connected to your 6th house of health. But the other thing is Venus is love. Venus is the love we give and receive. So it could be friendships. So there could be a review of friendships. There could be a review in your relationship. There could be like, and this doesn't mean like, oh, I'm breaking up. It's nothing like that. I mean, it could be if that's what someone wants, but it's not about this. It's about saying, all right, maybe we're not in a relationship. Maybe we're not communicating the way we need to. Maybe we're fighting so much. Like, what's going on? Like, where is the joy? Where is the, you have to stop and look and do a review of your relationship right now. Right. So Saturn is hitting over that. And it's so, Saturn is the teacher. And so whenever it's coming around, it's not light and easy. So I wouldn't expect it to be like, oh, I just don't feel anything. I mean, we could sometimes be harder on ourselves about our looks because Venus is beauty as well, right? It just depends on what's going on. But there's usually, when I see if people are married or in a relationship, there's usually like, okay, we're talking about things differently. Like we have to review, like there's something going on in the relationship that we need to look at, right?
Okay, so I love that. So it's kind of like gives that trigger.
Yeah. Now you also have transiting Neptune exactly opposing your sun. Now, this is a really big deal because Neptune is an outer planet, so it stays there for a very long time. It goes forward and it goes back, but it is there right now, and it's opposing your sun sign. So Neptune is very elusive. Now, this is like Saturn. We feel the harshness. We feel like things feel stuck. Because it wants us to slow down and fix things. Neptune is a completely different energy. Neptune is about spirituality. It's about opening you up, okay? It's about bringing in new ideas that you wouldn't have said yes to before, like being open to new things. Also, sometimes we have a plan for things and Neptune comes around and it just feels like, oh, that just went out the window or that went out the window. We have to make sure we're seeing things clearly when Neptune comes around, okay? And again, I don't want to get too deep into personal life here because we're, so we can talk later. Yeah. But these are basic things that anyone would feel if Neptune. Actually, I think it's really important, not that you're going to be sick or anything, but with Neptune on your sun, our energy is usually lower. And with Saturn over your Venus, it's a good time to check hormones. So it's really about your body optimization right now and just going slow with yourself and not pushing your body under these transits because you might feel a little bit more tired, a little bit more lethargic, and you have to just rest your body right now because you can't force it with these things. How
often do people get their readings? Like, for how long does this apply to?
Yeah, so this is going to be a cycle. This could be about, with Neptune, it sometimes could be like a year and a half off and on. Then I can give you specific dates when it's exact to it. But the transits move all the time. So, some people do it every 6 months. They want to check in every year would be good. But yeah, there are definitely different cycles. What I will say for you is there's an eclipse. So we just had 2 eclipses. And I love eclipses. They change our trajectory. They change our lives so much. And if an eclipse hits an inner planet like your sun, your moon, it's a big year for you. So this next eclipse on March 14th, 2025, it's at 23 of Virgo and your sun is at 26 of Virgo. So this next eclipse is going to hit your sun sign. That means starting March, actually, it starts usually about a month before. So around February 14th, you'll start feeling the energy. There's going to be big things for your career. And it's going to be a big year for you because when an eclipse hit your sun sign, it's a huge year for you.
Wow.
So yeah, and it's because it's in your 10th house of career. So there's going to be another like big thing with career.
This is kind of crazy because this feels like a way to optimize your life.
Yes.
Because a lot, right?
Yes.
As a lot of the times we are putting energy into not the right things.
Exactly.
And I feel like when you have this roadmap, you're like, okay, let's put it there and not here.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. The transits tell you everything. They tell you the cycles. Like I'm going through a really hard transit right now. It's the last end of it. It's been about 2.5 years off and on. And if I didn't know this, I mean, I honestly probably would have at some point in the last 2 years fallen into a deep depression because it's a very hard transit to go through. But I knew what it was doing. And so I said, okay, I knew what it's doing. I knew what it's asking of me. And I just have to sit with that. And can we sit with our deepest shadows until they leave, right? And then so I'm almost on the tail end of this and it's been amazing because I've come out the other end. But if it wasn't for astrology and understanding that cycle, you know, I would have been like, what's wrong with me? Am I just depressed all of a sudden for no reason? Like my life is good. Why am I feeling this?
Right.
And I'm feeling this because it was purging out old energy. So it is such a gift to have this with astrology.
I can only imagine how it manifests in different ways in your life. Like you were saying, if you didn't have this information, you would have gotten to depression. You would have gone and probably got on medications, right? And it just takes your life into a completely different trajectory.
It took me down a deeper spiritual path because I knew what this transit was doing. It's definitely, any astrologer will tell you, it's not one of the easy. It's, if someone knows, it's Pluto opposing my moon. So Pluto just rips you open and your moon is your emotional world, right? So, but what it's doing is having you find your power in ways that you didn't even know. Okay. And so, when I started feeling like these what it does is it pulls in, I started feeling a loneliness that I've never felt since I was a child. And I realized I'm like, this is old energy from when I was a kid, but it's still in my field, but it's not me now, right? So I had the awareness of that. So I said, I'm going to sit with it and I'm going to sit with that loneliness and I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to bury it. I'm going to sit with it because I know it's not the truth of who I am. And that's, I mean, I sat in tears, you know, and I journaled and I let it process and it moved through, right? And so, but what I also did is I started taking some supplements to help with like serotonin and it was amazing. And it was a natural supplements and I felt amazing. And it moved through easily because I saw what it was asking of me. It needed, you know, Pluto goes into your deepest shit in your shadows. And I'm like, I know that from where I want to go, if I still have this belief of loneliness that I had as a kid, that's not who I am anymore, but it's in my field. So like, let's purge that out. Like, let's sit with it. And, you know, it's not scary because I know it's not who I am.
Wow, that's so powerful.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I have a vision for like future medical system, healthcare in general. It will be your longevity doctor working with your astrologer.
Well, there's medical astrology,
like
which I study and I'm learning. I'm definitely not a master at it because that's a whole other realm, but there's medical astrology. And yeah, I'm studying that on the side when I have time. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing because it shows you your constitution. That's why I was able to say, really checking your hormones and looking at that right now is going to be important for you.
Oh my God. I know that people that are listening to this are probably like, it's such a different way of looking at life. So I know it might be a little bit hard to digest, but it's just mind-blowing.
This was so basic. Like I just went through a basic reading right now.
But it's, I mean, I have a lot of questions for you, of course, after.
Absolutely.
But it's just, honestly, it blows my mind.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful tool because it's a cheat sheet for life, really. That's what it is. And it's a beautiful tool. Like, again, there's no way I would be doing this if it wasn't accurate. And I actually love the people that say, I don't believe in astrology. And then if I pull up their chart, I'm like, well, let me see. You have Saturn doing this. So you're probably feeling this. And they're like, how'd you know? I'm like, well, astrology is not true, so I don't know. Right? So it's just, you can say, I don't believe in it, but the astrology is still going to be there. Like the astrology doesn't care about your ego, right? It's
So
still there. It's still happening regardless.
is astrology connected to astronomy? Like, is there any connection there?
Okay, well, if you ask the astronomers, they'll tell you that astrology is bullshit. So it depends on it is because it's the cycles. I do Western astrology that's based off the seasons. Vedic astrology is different. And what I will say with this is, because this seems to be such a fight with everyone, there's so many people that are like, Western astrology is BS and Vedic is right, or vice versa. And I just want to say that it's none of that. They're all tools, and there's a million tools. And anyone who is fighting and saying there's only one that's right doesn't understand the universe, because we are a quantum multidimensional universe, and there are a multitude of gifts. And it's just the way that you use the tool and see it through your intuition. So they're all beautiful and they're all profound. So yes, it is connected to the stars and it's connected to astronomy, but astronomers will tell you, no, astrology is bullshit. So, it's just programming. It's just programming. I ignore it. It is what it is.
I feel like I need to take the rest of the day off to just sit with all the things that are coming up for me.
Well, I just want to give a shout out to Creator Method, seriously, because I joined it. And so this is funny though, because I joined it and I'm like, okay, I need to learn how to make reels. I'm like, I'm not 20. I don't know what the kids are doing. And I'm like, I gotta learn this. And then I realized by watching everyone, and everyone's so creative in there, I realized, wait a minute. It's not me to flip my shoe and then turn into wear a dress. And I'm like, that's cool, but I don't know. That's not what I'm promoting. Right. So I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I realized through the Creator Method, it made me realize, why don't I just do what I'm actually good at, which is educational videos and just getting on and talking. And I'm like, I was looking around in circles thinking of all these things that I had to do. And then I joined this, and it really helped me to be like, why don't I just do what I'm good at? Right? It sounds so simple, but I was thinking I had to do all these things. So Creator Method changed me for that.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear.
So it's so beautiful. So yeah, my school just launched. It's open right now.
Yes, please give us more information. Where can people find you, and where can they check the school out?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at I am Danielle Paige, Paige. And all the links are in my bio. And it's Astrology Mystery School Level 1, and I'm teaching it live. We have so much fun. I've been teaching this for probably over 11 years, this course. And people, I keep going back to it, is what I told my masterclass last night, is because people fall in love with themselves and they stop judging. And once I learned that I have this aspect for love, I was like, well, I wish I would have learned this sooner, because I'm rescuing people, and no more. I'm not going to rescue them anymore,
Right.
And now I rescue dogs. So it's like, don't rescue men, rescue cats and dogs,
I love that. Actually, I want to also know, how did you change your approach to men and dating, you personally, after learning about the way you move?
Lots of learning, lots of self-reflection, lots of really being honest with myself. And that's the thing, if you're not willing to be honest with yourself, then you're not willing to really look at yourself, right? So I had to be honest with myself. Yeah, I was contributing to this. Yeah, I was doing this. And for a while, especially in my 30s, I look back now and I'm like, yeah, it was a self-worth thing. And I was probably finding people that were not my equal and rescuing them because I had a self-worth thing. So absolutely, I had to really do that. And my book is on love, but it's ultimately about self-love, because I've had many lessons with relationships to learn. So yeah, I had to learn a lot.
I love it. I love a book from a practitioner.
Thank you.
Danielle, thank you so much for coming and spending time with me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't miss my newest episode right here. And if you're listening to the podcast on Apple or Spotify, please go and leave a review with your biggest takeaway. I love reading your thoughts. And if you have any suggestions for guests or topics, you can leave them in the comment section. And always remember, you are not alone.